What a timeline, huh? It's been an entire year since I uploaded the video Why People Hate Female Protagonists in Gaming, which I came up with on the heels of the Game Awards 2024. Back then, the online chatter was about Atsu from Ghost of Yotei, Ciri from Witcher 4, and the lead character, which I recently learned is Jordan A. Munn from Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, all being women leads for major studios. And I wanted to throw my opinion into the fray because I felt Atsu and Ciri were catching strays and I was right. Well, I have returned again after the dust from the Game Awards 2025 ceremony is settled to share a thought to a question that circulates every year. And that question is, who really should win Game of the Year? But to explore who should win, we have to zero in on the video game industry and talk about, in this totally real coffee shop and not AI background, why Game of the Year matters. My name is Justin, and welcome to another of my commentary video essay talk things. Jumping right in, it's important I read over the past 11 years of Game of the Year winners, so we're all on the same page at where this video is headed. Beginning in 2015 was The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Next, we have Overwatch in 2016, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in 2017, followed by God of War in 2018. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, taking it in 2019. The Last of Us Part 2 wins in 2020. Then the little old indie title, It Takes Two, claims Game of the Year in 2021. Elden Ring coming in for 2022. 2023 was Baldur's Gate 3. Astrobot running away with it in 2024. And last, but certainly not least, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 as the most recent winner in 2025. There were a ton of video game releases last year. Personally speaking, outside of Ghost of Yotei, I've been hanging out on the Capcom side of things with Monster Hunter Wilds and Street Fighter 6. Now that we're in 2026, if Onimusha, Pragmata, and of course, Resident Evil Requiem turn out to be good, that'll be a wrap for me. I keep an ear and an eye open on some gaming discourse, and you would have thought, actually, based on people's wavering attention spans, jumping to whatever the current popular thing is, that in early 2025, Monster Hunter Wilds was a big talking point and might win Game of the Year. The conversation moved to Clair Obscur Expedition 33 once that released, and then Hollow Knight Silksong after that. But when I remember back to Sven Vinka's speech at the 2024 Game Awards, in his criticism of the inner workings of the gaming industry, he remarked that the Game of the Year would go to the game with a studio that cares about their game design, created something they wanted to see in the world, respected their developers, and didn't chase numbers on a spreadsheet. Now, two hands, now, I'll be the last person to defend corporate executives within the video game industry. But Sven's points resonated with what I believe the Game of the Year award should be, and was evident from the previous winners. Even further back than the past 11 Game of the Year winners, each game pushed the envelope in gaming or brought to life an experience that either didn't exist quite like that specific game or was a massive leap forward on a formula that the design and gameplay loop was unrecognizable. One of the cleanest examples was Elden Ring implementing verticality. From Software are masters at creating complex environments, but including verticality opened the door for game mechanics that I don't think would have worked in Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3. It may seem small looking back at how Elden Ring is laid out, but without verticality, running around a barren world in its twilight hours of existence, fighting bosses that can borderline one-shot you, playing as a character that continues to resurrect with a narrative buried in items. I know it sounds like through my tone I don't like Elden Ring, I really do like it, and I'm going to make a video on that one. But to me, Elden Ring was like one significant change away from being Dark Souls 4. When I think back to Sven's comments about knowing who would win Game of the Year in the future, I'm reminded of articles I read about the disappointment the director of Black Myth Wukong felt at not winning Game of the Year in 2024. I recall how popular Wukong was when it was first revealed. We all saw that. It took over the internet for a while. I was also aware of the news and positive reception circulating around the game when people finally got their hands on it. Other than the graphical fidelity, that game didn't appear to do anything different or elevate anything about the genre it's closely attached to, which, like I was getting at with Elden Ring, just makes it another Souls clone to me. An aspect of the Game Awards that comes up that I glossed over in my predictions video was how the committee votes for Game of the Year. The exact process is likely a closely guarded secret, but as far as what's been made available from the Game Awards website and other sources online, there is a voting jury that is comprised of industry experts and media outlets making up 90% of the vote. The remaining 10% goes to the public. And looking back at the previous winners, it does make me wonder if controversies surrounding a game or its studio play a role in the qualification process. And speaking of, the Game of the Year qualification conveys the category as the best experience across all creative and technical fields. Remember that. Related to controversies though, it's if a company was going through something like the lawsuit the state of California alleged against Blizzard, could that disqualify a game even if that game studio delivered something that met the criteria? Of the past winners, nothing jumps out at me that seemed controversial at the time. And realistically, people in poor working conditions usually don't produce authentic work, period, let alone something that would resonate with enough of the gaming audience to get a nomination. Here's to you, Gollum of 2023, I think. I'd like to think that the committee that determines Game of the Year isn't aware of the behind-the-scenes controversies at these gaming studios. And likely, whatever the game, it wouldn't reach the caliber to even be considered, you know what I mean? Well, I guess Blizzard, right? And also, I guess check back on this video after Grand Theft Auto 6 releases. Even though there's been a negative light on gaming journalists and outlets over the past few, if not many years, the format being determined by professionals in an industry instead of a majority opinion by the general public is a wise move. There have been plenty of examples of when communities, especially of the gaming variety, don't get what they want, they band together to review bomb something as a form of protest. With as professional, prestigious, and life-changing the Game of the Year award can be, having most of the final decision be determined by long-standing credentialed professionals instead of an emotional online mob should protect and maintain the integrity and quality of the award. Reflecting on some of the previous winners again, CD Projekt Red's Witcher 3 wasn't just doing what Skyrim and Dragon Age Inquisition did. It took the cinematic storytelling, writing, and overall world feel to a wider range than games that were released around the same time. Blizzard Entertainment, bringing them up again, Blizzard Entertainment's specialty for refining gameplay loops and popularizing what had already been done for the mainstream audience meant that the hero shooter Overwatch had that polish, a high level of production value, and a worldwide reception that was unmatched in 2016. Nintendo, with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, reimagined open-world gameplay to such an extent that it still felt today across adventure and RPG genres. I guarantee you, you listening to this video right now, you are playing a game that was inspired by Breath of the Wild in 2017. Side tangent, but there it is. Larian Studios knew they had a gem in Baldur's Gate 3. Reading and listening to discussions about Baldur's Gate 3, it seemed like anything was possible in that game to such an extent that no two playthroughs were likely to be the same because of the choices players made. Not only did that kind of depth to an RPG speak to how massive the game was, but also that the game was unlike anything else because of how niche and unknown the series had been before the third entry. It Takes Two, personal favorite of mine, but It Takes Two was similar to A Way Out, and like Baldur's Gate, A Way Out was regarded as a fantastic game, but wasn't as circulated. The legendary Joseph Fares of Hazelight Studios both wrote and directed A Way Out and It Takes Two, but It Takes Two is, in 2021, It Takes Two was A Way Out if you just turned the dial on everything in A Way Out to the max. An unlikely masterpiece that was also the right place and right time. For many, Astro Bot came out of nowhere as the surprise pick in 2024, based on how the game looked and how it played. When you consider a game that excels across all creative and technical fields, its win starts to make more sense. The developers mentioned in their speech the game is heavily inspired by the platforming in Mario games, which Nintendo was known for, but possibly unlike Mario, Team Asobi had the distinct advantage of leaning on the entire, I need two hands again for this, the entire PlayStation library when developing their game. Nintendo is the only other company that could create something like Astro Bot, but the closest it seems they're willing to explore the idea of characters across a library of intellectual property interacting is Smash Bros. Astro Bot took the player on a journey through the history of PlayStation hardware, software, technology, and peripherals. It wouldn't surprise me if that was a major weight that swung in Astrobot's direction. They did something no one else had done and most cannot do. All that to say, the Game of the Year award doesn't appear to just reward what sells the most units or what's being talked about on social media. Cultural context, mainstream appeal, of course, is factored in, and as I've referenced, Game of the Year has consistently been awarded to the game that brings innovation to the widest audience within the gaming landscape and/or redefines a formula within a genre where the experience feels new again. When I look at Game of the Year through that lens, brother, it is without question Clair Obscur Expedition 33 cleaned up the way that it did. Unless a team actually wins Game of the Year, it's impossible to know how life-changing the experience is. For some, it may not be their goal to win Game of the Year, but I appreciate that studios hold their heads high for their peers and recognize the impact everyone is contributing toward a landscape of better video games. The Game Awards are one of the few award ceremonies now that celebrates the immense effort developers put into building amazing interactive experiences for us, regular people, regular players. So at the very end here, Game of the Year matters because it's the one award recognized around the world as the absolute best, the strongest representation of what gaming is, where the video game industry is at the moment, and a glimpse at where it's going. I'm sure Jeff Keighley and the team are always looking at ways of improving the ceremony, like when they were cutting people off too early and getting them off the stage. But if there's one thing I hope continues for many years to come, it's the process they have for who wins the final award. So that's it for me, though. I wish I could have found a way to work in a ball and gun joke somewhere in this video essay. I'm sure I'll put it in the next one, maybe next time. So thanks for watching and listening. Let me know what you think of the Game of the Year award in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button so I know these are resonating with people out there, and I will catch you in the next gaming video. See ya.